Welcome to Get It Growing, the television program of the LSU Ag Center and the Lafayette Parish Master Gardener program. Today we're extremely excited to have Ms. Glenda Balliviero. She's a retired educator from Plaquemines Parish and a past member of the 4-H and an avid gardener. And she's also, like I said, she's a master gardener here in Lafayette Parish. I guess graduated with a 2000 class.
Right.
With her husband Norman, and she does a lot of work with the children's garden, and so that's what we wanted to talk about today, as the gardening with children, and specifically a lot to do with the children's garden. So I just want to go ahead and.
Well, back in 2000, my husband and I both took the Master Gardener class. Being an avid gardener and a true lover of kids, it was very key to my heart. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, we ended up developing the children's garden, which is really a part of the Lafayette Master Gardeners demonstration gardens, and has been very, very successful. So what we're going to do today is kind of talk to you as parents, grandparents, even friends, to get involved with gardening with your children. It really and truly can be a very fun and rewarding situation for you. When we do this, though, we have to have many things in mind. For instance, whenever you're dealing with children, whatever you do with them, you want to be sure that it's fun for them as well as educational. And whenever it comes to gardening, and we as adults just cannot go out there and, for instance, say, this is what we're going to plant, this is what we can't plant. Actually, we need to give the children some type of choice, and they want to meet with success. So we just don't simply go and choose some seeds and kind of say, okay, this is what we're going to plant. Maybe we can go to one of the nurseries or whatever, go around and pick up some seed packs and maybe give them the choice of what they would like to plant. However, at the same time, we also have to be careful that whatever they choose is going to be something that's going to germinate very easily and quickly. Because if they plant something and then it does not grow, immediately they're going to feel unsuccessful.
Right.
So actually, I would say give the kids a choice with that, but also be sure that it's going to be something that they're going to be successful with. And also, I think we need to give them the opportunity to make a decision. Do they really want to make, for instance, a flower garden just in order to bring beautiful flowers into your mom or your grandmother's home? Or do you want to have, for instance, a vegetable garden and grow your own cucumbers or tomatoes, peppers, whatever? I kind of believe that if children grow their own veggies, they're more likely to eat it, Rob, than if they just simply go to the store and buy those vegetables.
Right. And it's neat that, a lot of times for kids to actually see where the vegetables come from, rather than, when you go to the supermarket, they think it just grows on the shelf. They actually see where it comes from beginning to end. So.
Right. And I think that's most important because we're in an urban area and many children really don't have the opportunity to see those vegetables or fruit growing. So I would say, first of all, to give them the choice of what they want to grow, then purchase the seeds, and then by all means, if you have to prepare an area for the garden, never let them fool with the large machinery. Be sure that whatever tools they have are really geared to the children so that they do not get hurt. I would recommend that they have hats in order to wear because it gets very hot this time of the year. Also, I would recommend that they have gloves to work with. If it's not real good gloves, just simply some of those that you can get at the drugstore, because very often you have something that's in the soil that could end up cutting their fingers. Plus, it's not a good idea to get the soil under your fingertips like that. So then after, for instance, if the garden, they were making a vegetable garden, if it's prepared, then kind of give them their own section in it. Just don't, for instance, say you can just garden with me, because all children like to say, this is mine. They want that ownership of it like that.
One thing I noticed when we were judging the 4-H gardens last week was that all of them had their own little plot, and it seemed like they had their own little piece of real estate to develop. They really enjoyed. I mean, they really took ownership of that.
Right, and that's important because we want it to be fun, and we also want it to be educational for them. So I would suggest, for instance, after we get home and maybe we have purchased some seeds, show the children that in the back of this pack of the seeds that they have many items that are of great importance. For instance, how many days it's going to take for that seed to germinate. And for instance, after they have planted the seeds with you, maybe what you can end up doing is simply making a marker from a simple plastic knife. And for instance, if we're planting zinnias, then we could write on their zinnias and the date that we planted it, because it's most important for them to see how long it's going to take for the seed to germinate. But I would also encourage you as a parent or whatever to look in here to see, be sure that you're planting it the right place. Does it go in sun? Does it go in shade? How big it's going to get, so that we know that it's going to be planted in the right place.
I can appreciate having a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. I can appreciate the quickly having something quickly show up, because it's almost like they ask you on an hourly basis,
Yes,
is it growing yet? Is it growing yet? After you
Right.
put it in the ground, they're wanting to see something almost instantaneous.
And remember, we want this to be fun for the kids. So if they don't see immediately that the seed's going to germinate and they have a plant, then they're going to really feel discouraged. We want to have them to be successful. Then, for instance, after it starts growing, maybe you could almost make a chart with them. Say, for instance, okay, we planted the seed and it's June 3rd. Say the zinnia, it ended up germinating like a week later. Make a chart with the children, let them see, okay, a week later the seed germinated. Then whenever it has the flower on it, go ahead and indicate that date, so they can go back and look to see exactly how long it took from the time that they planted the seed until actually they had a flower. And very often what ends up happening is, if you have planted a vegetable, then we have to kind of encourage them to realize that you have a flower before you have the fruit, or before you have the vegetable there. So again, it's a process of them observing and watching this. Also, we can actually go out and buy veggies. And again, I stress that it's going to be something that's going to germinate very quickly. Say, for instance, beans or peas or something that will germinate quickly. So this is something that, again, they can meet success very quickly. Also, maybe we would like to, with the children, maybe have an herb garden. This is, for instance, this is some spearmint. They will be able to experience the sense of smell, the fragrance on there. Or, for instance, if they've decided that they wanted to have a beautiful flower garden, or maybe take part with their parents or grandmothers, maybe let them choose the type of plants that they want, in that, you know, we have plants that are for butterflies, we have plants that are for hummingbirds, and this would be something to encourage the children, you know, with there as well.
Wildlife, man.
Right.
Very interesting.
Right.
I like that.
Actually, sometimes parents think that, you know, they don't have a lot of these things at home that they can actually work with the children. I have found, I'm a big recycler, and honestly what I do is, if you go to some of the stores and you get these salads, I actually keep the container from the salads and I turn it into a little greenhouse. Actually what it is, you can end up putting some soil in your seeds, and then when you end up covering it up, in a few days it will end up germinating, and then you can just simply transplant these out to the garden. Plus they'll be able to actually watch to see when it first starts sprouting, and then you get your leaves on there. So there's lots of things that's right in your home that you can end up using with the kids that is really fun.
Kind of like a little mini terrarium that you got from Wendy's that you didn't even know you had.
That's right.
That's neat.
Right. But also, now if we go out and we plant seeds is one thing, but then the next thing, say for instance, we go to one of the Home Depots or Lowe's, whatever, and we purchase a plant that the child would like. Again, we will encourage them to look at the tag that's in there. And for instance, on the tag, it will end up saying, should this grow in the sun? Should it grow in the in shade? How far apart we should plant them. Therefore, we'll need to know how many we'll need in order for the space that we have allotted there. Also, whenever we get outside with the children and we're working, we have to be very careful in what they come in contact with, because very often, say for instance, there may be poison ivy around there, which they could end up getting. So sometimes it's very good in order to point out those plants that they need to be careful to be around. And of course, you can point out, you know, the plants that have the 3 leaves that are really, really dangerous.
Yeah, it seems with my 9-year-old right now, it's the times when he doesn't have poison ivy is the rarer times. So it seems like he always has it. I think he's crawling through all kinds of plants right now.
After we have either planted the potted plant into the ground or we planted the seeds. Actually, we need to, let them know, first of all, what does it take for a plant to grow? And of course, with the children, I always tell them, first of all, they need Mr. Sun to shine down for the warmth. And then they need Mr. Rain to give them the water for the plant to end up growing. Of course, we have the seeds in the soil. But if Mr. Rain doesn't come this week, we have to give them that responsibility of going out there and getting either a watering can or a hose in order to water the plants. One thing that I would try to stress with parents or grandparents is never give children the responsibility of just going out there and weed the garden, because as they get older, they will consider that gardening is really not fun, because the only thing I ever had to do was just weed the garden. That's right, I had a little child just tell me that recently, that she probably would never garden when she got married, because all she did when she was younger was simply to pull the weeds out of the garden. So we need to give them the fun experience of going out there and watering. And then, of course, in order to keep down some of those weeds, we can end up putting a lot of mulch around the plant. And I know for me, it's most important, because pulling weeds all the time can really become very discouraging. And again, we want the children to meet success with the gardening like that.
Definitely. And then using a mulch a lot of times takes one of those little chemicals out of there that you don't have to use. You don't have to use a chemical to get rid of the weeds or suppress the weeds since you're using a mulch or something.
Right. And then also what I try to stress to the children when they come through the garden, that very often you hear the parents say that they are going to go to the store and buy plant food. Honestly, it is not really plant food, because the food of plants is actually made in the leaf of the plant. So I kind of relate fertilizer to them as vitamins. So for instance, these are some extra things that the plant may need, and we don't have to go out there constantly and fertilize all the time, but it's just something that will be special in order to give this some growing power, or maybe it's to bloom more, like that.
That makes a lot of sense, because you do hear that a lot of the people, and it's not just kids. A lot of times adults, they think of it as
right.
They think of fertilizers as being food for the plants, and they're oftentimes are extremely surprised to find out that plants do indeed make their own food. That fertilizers are just, like you say, just components that they use to make that.
Right.
They use to do that.
Right. And to the parents, I would like to stress, first of all, get those plants that the kids are going to enjoy, because they're going to germinate and grow fast. For instance, zinnias are something that's very easy to grow, and then it also attracts the butterflies, and all the young children loves to watch the butterflies there in the garden. Then also, after the plant has developed the flower, and the flower is completely done its job, what I would also like to stress is maybe that the parents could let it go to seed, because what we like to do is to show the cycle of a plant. For instance, we planted a seed, then we have watched it grow, we've watched it develop the flower, and now it's going back to seed. For instance, this is a larkspur. You can see the beautiful purple flowers. Then after it's over with, the petals of the flower will fall off, and then we will have the seed pod. But we don't want to pick it quite yet, because if you notice, the capsules with the seeds are in, actually they're green. Right. We want to wait until they really dry up, and then when they're dry, the seeds are dark, then we can gather them. At the gardens this year, I had some poppies growing, and this is something that the children really enjoy seeing. For instance, this is actually the seed pod. First we had the poppy, and it had the petals around it, and then as the petals end up falling off, what ended up happening is this was a green seed head, and then what happened is it became dry. But the seeds that are in here actually are not ready to be gathered until the windows of the house has opened. Okay. And if you notice all around the top of this, there's little tiny holes. And then whenever we have if we gather them, it's really neat, because then what you can do is turn the seed pod upside down, and it's really just like a salt and pepper shaker. Actually, what I do is I get a preserve jar, turn the seed pod upside down, and then when I do, you can see them come out. I don't know if you can see it with the TV or not, but you can see that it's raining seeds now. So again, this is something that's fun for the kids to do, fun to gather, and this is the kind of poppies that we can actually end up making poppy seed bread or poppy seed cake with.
Oh, There's quite a few seeds that come out of that one particular little plant there.
Yes, you can see that this is all the seeds from just one tiny little seed capsule that is here.
So that is really something else. But, I say you have some pictures
Yes, actually what we have gathered some pictures of the children's garden, and what we'll do is we'll show them to you because we would like to encourage you all this summer. The kids are out of school, whether you're a parent or a grandparent or maybe even a babysitter, and this place is actually located right here in Lafayette. It's a beautiful place to take the children, and as we have it up now, you can see that the title that we have chosen for this is To Follow the Yellow Brick Road. And here we have a tin man that actually welcomes the visitors into the garden. Then we have many specialty gardens as we go into it. We have the ABC garden, where plants beginning with a specific letter of the alphabet are there to teach the beginning sounds as well as the name of the plant. Then we have a pizza garden, which is actually in the shape of a circle, divided into slices, so that we can also teach fractions.
Go to the next picture.
Okay, here we have some children experiencing the sense of smell. Actually, this was some spearmint, and Norman was letting the children smell this. You know, very often we do not want to simply give the children any plants from the garden. We want to be sure whatever we show them or let them smell, we're holding in our own hands, because we don't want them to get involved. Very often children have allergies. So if you take your children to the garden, please be sure that what you do is simply to show them the things, do not touch. Then we have another part of the garden that is the animal-friendly area, and here we have plants that have an animal's name within it. For instance, we have a shrimp plant, we have the lamb's ears, we have lion's tails. Then we also have, for instance, in the background, you can see we have a large teepee. And the purpose of the teepee is to teach the habits of vines as well as the importance of our Native Americans in the gardening process. Here we have the Patriotic Gordon, and here we actually have plants that begin bloom either the red, the white, or the blue. And it's fun because the children, especially little Head Start children, they like to be able to point out to you the red, white, and blue are the colors there. We have many gardens and within this, and then we have another one that's Mr. McGregor's garden. And actually, Mr. McGregor's garden is developed around the theme of Peter Rabbit. And here, actually, what we try to do is to plant a seed so that the children can actually end up watching the seed develop into a plant that will produce a flower that will eventually become either a fruit or vegetable and then end up on their dinner table. Of course, through the seasons, we do change the plants. Here we have Mr. McGregor, and you can tell it's pretty much winter time because the plants that are in the background are all dormant. In the winter, we do have the cabbage and also broccoli and kale. And then in the fall, we do sometimes have pumpkins, and right now we have tomatoes and green beans. Here, this is the same vegetable garden. However, here what we've done is we have added crayons actually made from PVC pipe. And the purpose of this is to teach the importance of each of the colored veggies or fruits to their nutritional value. Then actually we have the Pioneer Garden, and with the Pioneer Garden, we actually grow plants that were grown by our ancestors for necessity purposes. For instance, we have the cotton, then we have the sugar cane, then we have the plants from around the world, and this is actually the papaya tree, and actually it has survived the winter, and this is something that would normally grow like in South America. Then there's other goals of our garden, and this is in order to stress the importance of wildlife in the garden. We have handcrafted worms, the earthworm, and this actually, the earthworm in this picture is actually in what's called wormwood. So we kind of correlate the name of that with it. Then we also have some wooden snakes, and here we point out that snakes are beneficial to the Gordon because they actually eat rodents like rats and mice. But also we encourage the children never ever touch any snake because we never know which one would be harmful to them. We also have many learning boxes. For instance, this one here said, what is the reason for a flower? And then it goes on to tell you that the flowers are necessary for pollination. And even if you come to the Gordons and there's not a person there to take you through in a tour, you can take the children through. Being an educator, after I developed the Gordons, I wanted to also have an educational program. So what I ended up doing was I actually correlated the Louisiana State Science Basic Skills with the program, so that when the children come to visit, what would end up happening was they would have a reinforcement of the skills that were being taught at school. For instance, this in here is the parts of a flower. Then we also, for instance, I stressed, we'll show them, for instance, pollination. We will show them germination. Then we'll also proceed to show them the way that the structure of a plant is. For instance, this right here is a growth box. And in here, we actually have some corn and some beans planted. And then the bottom of the box, actually a door opens up. And when the door is open, they can actually see the root system of that, which makes it very nice. Actually, all little kids like to kind of peep into something there. So actually, when the kids come to the Gordon, what ends up happening is we have the twofold. Norman, my husband, takes the children on the tour of the Gordons, and then I do the educational part. And it is really nice because they're getting to see both sides of this. A couple years ago, I wrote an F&P grant, which is the Family Nutrition Program, and it is a federalized grant. And what we did, we have obtained both a projector and a computer, a screen, and a camera. And now what we're doing is we're going into the schools, and when we do, what ends up happening is we'll show programs either on good nutrition or children's garden, the very basics. And this is really nice because it's nice when we go to the school and we show the kids what they're going to see at the garden first. That way they have an idea of what they're going to experience there.
Right.
Here we actually have some children, and this is from one of the schools, and they're actually planting sunflower seeds. This was actually a Mother's Day project last year with Green Tea Linden School, a school I think that's in Youngsville. And it was right at the time, perfect time for sprouting things. And of course, we explained to the children the importance of the soil and also of the needing to water them and putting them in sun. This is this year, it's a Head Start class. And here, this is one of our helpers, Toy, and what she's doing is actually showing the children, I think this is a cucumber plant, the flower developing into that little fruit, the veggie. It's so much fun for these children. You can see how intensely they're watching. Then when we go through the gardens, many of them really and truly like to get down there and see things real close up. And I think here someone was discovering that there was a ladybug down there.
Oh.
Here, actually, we have taken, since the gardens began, over 4,500 children through it. And actually, those come from private, parochial, and public schools. And this right here happens to be some of the children from Girl Scouts, and they're actually working on their Girl Scout Gardening Merit Badge. This is one of the younger troops right here. It's been very rewarding to have these children come through the garden and help them work with them. Actually, I also had the 4-H kids who end up coming to work on their plant identification as well. And you know, the garden is not just for children. Actually, I work with the senior citizens from over at the greenhouse, and a couple of months ago, I took them over to the garden, took them through, and they were really thrilled. You know, we're never too old to learn, and these people are so appreciative. We encourage everyone to come to the gardens, not just the children, because we have a beautiful demonstration gardens of many, many things, and it's open from 7 to 7 p.m. daily.
Yeah, it's off of Johnston Street at the Ira Nelson Horticulture Center, which is off of Johnston Street right near the Blackham Coliseum. Right over, it's adjacent to the Blackham Coliseum, so feel free to come there.
This is the newest addition to the garden. You can see we got a new structure and arbor. You'll recognize it though because Mr. Tin Man is still there and, you know, actually welcome you to the garden. We, as I'm sure Rob feels the same way that I do, we want to encourage people to come out and visit. We have been very honored this year. We have just finished winning the International Award for Children's Gardening, and it has been indeed an honor. My husband and I went to the International Master Gardener Convention back in March, and we were very honored. It was the first time that Louisiana has received any Master Gardener Award, and having it with Children's Garden made it even more impressive for us. We brought home the plaque. It is not ours. It is for the Lafayette Parish Master Gardeners.
Very good. Oh my
I was going to slide in there, but okay.
Well, okay?
That is really...
Coming back next year.
You made a good prop.
Yeah.
Well, I never did get to say what the plants look like. That was supposed to be after, but yeah.
This is great, and it is so pretty. It's just beautiful.
We're good.
You did great.
We're good. Good. They didn't cover it all, though. Well, we only have 30 minutes.
It'll be another show.
I could tell you were a little nervous there at the beginning.
I was. I admit it, I was.
But then all of a sudden it was like you just rolled right into it and got going, and it was like,
We're good.
you look great.
I was.
Well, she was
Yeah.
just talking
did
about what
awesome.
she knows, and
Yeah,
it went
you
along
did
just
awesome.
wonderful.
Girl, you did fabulous.
You
And
did
from
awesome.
one educated to another.